Of course, in Davos, security tight in the Swiss ski resort ahead of the opening of the World Economic Forum later this evening. Davos welcoming the business and political elite of the world for the conference, which is underway until Friday. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, French President Emmanuel Macron and key Middle East leaders are due to attend the 54th annual WEF gathering, putting talks to end wars in Gaza and Ukraine at the top of the agenda. The program says the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will speak in person at the forum on Tuesday. A challenging global economic picture with shifting interest rate policies and rising debt will also confront central bankers, financiers and business leaders who are attending. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund releasing a report today which says that artificial intelligence could take 40% of the jobs in the world. Those jobs will be obsolete. The machines will literally take over. Our business reporter, Xolani Mbanjwa, in Davos in Switzerland, he has more on this story for us. Xolani, good afternoon to you. This is incredibly scary. What does this report say that we haven't heard before about artificial intelligence?
Good afternoon, Stephen. Well, this report coming out of the International Monetary Fund, which is known as the lender of last resort around the world for public finances, has released this report ahead of another interesting engagement by the IMF here in Davos at WEF 2024 around artificial intelligence. This particular report actually says that 40% of jobs around the world could become obsolete and could be hit because of how fast machine learning is actually taking place around the world. We've seen the likes of ChatGPT actually evolving so fast. The evolution of AI in the past 2 years has taken a life of its own. We've seen a lot of experts saying that these changes that were expected at least in the next 5 to 10 years have actually taken place in the last 2 years. And it's something that is quite important to note that most of what the IMF is saying is that developed nations are the ones at risk when it comes to them being much more ready and prepared and having 5G and the latest technologies. They are most at risk. The jobs in those developed economies, such as those in Europe, such as the UK and Germany, and when you look closer to the report, the US as well as Japan. So it's quite an interesting report that has come out that also has emphasized, Stephen, what was said last year in the OECD report around AI, and which also estimated around that number of 40% of jobs being at risk as those machines take on roles that have that require human intelligence. So it's quite an interesting development from the IMF side, with from whom we are going to hear tomorrow. The first Deputy Managing Director, Geeta Gopinath, is going to be addressing this particular issue around jobs and AI in the afternoon here tomorrow.
And I mean, AI is a discussion at the World Economic Forum this year. You can't look at the business section of any news website without some conversation about it. It's going to be a huge discussion point this year.
It's going to be a huge discussion point this year. In fact, when you look at the global risks barometer that was released by the World Economic Forum last week, you will find that most of the top 10 risks for this particular year and in the next 5 years and the next 10 years, AI is in the mix. AI, as you know, they are saying today that if the machine is not going to take your job, someone who can utilize AI will. And in economies such as sub-Saharan Africa, they are much more safer because they are not as advanced when it comes to tech as most of the developed world. So the discussion point here, as you've mentioned, the global economy being stifled by some of the issues such as inflation and interest rates. The global economy is a big issue. Climate change is a big issue here. We saw protests coming in to Davos clusters of activists wanting action to be taken on that issue. But when it comes to AI, it's something that already you can see in our daily lives taking over some of those roles that would normally be performed by humans. And they're talking here about sectors such as call centers. Call centers may not be around in the next 15 to 20 years. Those would be machines which would be prompted by consumers. You'll be called by a machine rather than a human being. How that is going to actually affect consumers and how they would feel about it, it will all be in the interaction. But indeed, AI, a huge discussion here in Davos.
Do we know which sectors are most likely to be hit? I mean, many people in many sectors are worried about the impact AI will have on them.
We're talking here already. We've seen the auto manufacturing sector. It is highly machinized, and we've seen those machines taking over the jobs. Although there are humans behind those machines, that particular sector has actually changed a lot in the past couple of years. Also, mining is another particular sector that has been mentioned, as well as the one that I just mentioned, which is call centers. We are seeing that what they're actually talking about when it comes to other sectors that might not be as affected. Of course, it's doctors, it's lawyers, it's police officers, although even in the future they are saying police officers will have to learn and integrate into AI by the use of drones in order to keep safety and security. So it's something that is a big talking point, and there has been a chat around agriculture as well, although that will not be as affected as much as the other manufacturing sectors will be affected. It's a huge talking point here at the World Economic Forum.
Xolani Mbanjwa, our business editor at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Thank you very much indeed. More